let's move on. We've been talking a lot about money, finance, procurement, and a few other topics. We really haven't spoken about the next generation and the next generation value chains. And we'd like to introduce Mr. Himanshu Malu, who is currently working as VP Supply Chain Pharma at Udaan.com. I'm sure everybody has heard about Udaan. If not, Himanshu can tell you. It is one of the best startup companies that is doing very well as a multi-omni-channel distribution, if you add. Himanshu is an enterprising strategist and influential value creator with skills in building business capabilities by mentoring teams, solving crucial business challenges, and providing insightful directions. He has more than 20 years of experience. You look far younger than 20 years of experience across APAC and Middle East in sectors such as e-commerce, pharma, FMCG, food, beverages, and medical devices. Prior, he has had great stint with companies like Glanbia, a pharma company, J&J, Novartis, Coke, and Eveready. He's a sports enthusiast that we can see clearly and believes in following a healthy and balanced lifestyle. Welcome you. Take your seat on the stage. I'll be inviting a panel, and you'll be introducing them, sure. Or they'll be self-running. Yeah. All right, let's call panel in no specific order. My good friend Akhil Srivastava, Director BU, South Asia at AB InBev. Where is he? Right here. Please, good. Vijay Shetty, I've been talking to him but met today, so such a pleasure, Vijay. All the best. Supply Chain VP at Alkem. Charish Puri, Vice President, Fresh Business at WayCool Foods. WayCool. You have some more job later. Parvesh Ghai, Chief Revenue Officer, Asia Pacific and Middle East. Okay. But here the name is Parvesh Ghai, so. Okay, all right. So please make it, yeah. So we know you, Prasad. Anand Maithani, very good old friend of almost 10 years. Good to see you, Anand, after a long time, man. From Delhi, Head Logistics, Industrial Engineering at Apollo. And I have a special pleasure to introduce my ex-boss from 96-97, Shailendra Bobhate, Senior Advisor at KPMG. I cannot tell you how happy I am because in 96-97 we did an amazing project for Tyres, where I was saying when people are talking demand-driven logistics and whatever technology, and we actually put 160 dish antennas all over India, and we used to get everyday sales, revenue, and stock from all 168 depots. Shailendra was a craftsman to do that with McKinsey & Company, and I was lucky to work for him in 96. I did so well, I went to Singapore in 97. Thank you very much, guys. Over to you, Himanshu.
Thank you, Sanjay.
55 minutes, introductions, including Q&A.
Yes.
Rocket.
So as Sanjay said, I think all of you enjoyed the lunch, right? And therefore, we have kept this session just after lunch, because I'm sure that all of you need a lot of energy and very exciting session. And therefore, this session is the panel discussion is on the next generation value chain, right? So before we get into it, I would request our panelists to start introducing themselves to the audience. So, yeah, starting with you, Sharon.
Is it working? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So, like Sanjay introduced me, my name is Shailendra Bobhate. I have over 30 years overall experience, of which almost 20 plus years I have spent in supply chain and operations. Worked in various industries, starting with Tyres, and then moved into FMCG, and then spent longest period of time in pharma, almost more than 12, 13 years. I recently retired as Senior Director Supply Chain Operations from Abbott. And now as you can see that I'm with KPMG as Senior Advisor in a consultancy role. I enjoy what I do. So it's been very pleasurable journey of right through 30 years in sales, marketing, supply chain and operations. Now I am here with you to share some of my experiences, which I hope that you'll find useful and interesting. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Akhil Srivastava. Around 15 years of progressive experience working with ITC, PepsiCo. Right now, work with AB InBev. For those people who don't know, we have brands which you might know, named Budweiser, Corona, Hoegaarden. So hopefully, we will bring people together tonight, and we will share a lot of happiness over networking. So my current profile is to bring Budweiser and make it available for you guys today.
So you know the reason why he's here today.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Anand. I lead the global supply chain for Apollo Tyres, around 22 years of experience. Completely the reverse. I started with Pepsi Foods and then to Tyres, so almost 12 years with Apollo and the tire business.
Hi, I'm Vijay Shetty. I head the global distribution and logistics for Alkem. Prior to that, I worked with companies like BSF, DSM, Cipla, Glenmark, and Raymond's. Today, I'm here to share some insights and also to learn from all of you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Charish Puri and representing WayCool Food Products Private Limited today. My total experience is like 14 years in supply chain domain. Before this, I was working with Ashok Leyland, and since last 1 year, I'm associated with WayCool. About the company, this company is dealing in the food distribution segment, and they are dealing in all the products which are required for the kitchen solutions on food side other than meat and fish. And I am heading fresh business for them. Fresh means which is into fruits and vegetables. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Prakash. I lead the global marketing and customer engagement at Pando. At Pando, we help manufacturers and retailers worldwide through our supply chain execution solutions to reduce freight cost, improve SLAs, and contribute to sustainability goals. I have about 18 years plus of experience. Before Pando, I'd worked with Ramco, and before that with Ziffy Technologies. Through my journey, I've been helping enterprises to sort of drive digital transformation and thrive digitally. Thank you.
Great. So thank you, panel. It's definitely a privilege to be a part of this great panel. A few years before, we just used to hear that the only constant in the world is change, right? But I guess even the change is changing so fast, even that's not the constant anymore, right? We've seen the supply chain moving from one extreme to the other extreme, and the reason is changing customer behaviors, expectations, business needs, entrepreneurship kind of thought processes, and most importantly, data and technology. I think that's what is really taking supply chain from supply chain to more towards the value chain, and that's what you want to deliver as a business proposition to your customer to keep yourself alive in the business today. So guys, if you look at today's, we are going to talk about the next generation value chain. See, a couple of years back, when the COVID thing happened, we really understood the importance of operations in supply chain, not just into the boardroom of our companies, but also to, I think, dining table of each and every one of us. When everything was stuck, everything was under chaos, the only thing which was running the world and the businesses was supply chain, right? And that increased the
Fantastic.
evolution of entire supply chain into value chain, right? So with that, my first question, and obviously that also increased the importance of how, how do you take care of your customers and how do you kind of, keep delighting your customer to remain competitive. My first question is basically to Shailendra and to Anand, is on how companies are keeping customer at the center while designing their next generation value chains. So Shailendra and Anand.
Thank you, Manshu. I think it's no brainer that customer has to be at the center, and before we are supply chain professionals, are also customers ourselves, and we have experienced ourselves of companies how they treat us when it comes to us as customers, and we realize how important supply chain is. And we have seen, I don't want to name the companies, but we have seen many companies we haven't done so have perished. They are now part of the history. Someone presented in the morning, I think it was Raja, who said it's not the corporates who compete, it's the supply chains which compete in the marketplace. So once your brands become commodities, what really matters is how efficient your supply chain is and how important you give to the customer in your supply chain. And that's really the key success factor of any organization whether, I mean, it decides it's actually make or break. Whether you're a profitable company or you're not. Are you gaining customers or you're losing customers? So it's very, very important to ensure. I mean, I have myself seen, I have tried out, today there are so many e-commerce companies. I've tried out some of the big names in the industry and have seen how bad the supply chain is. I mean, in terms of getting responses, in terms of getting feedback. You give feedback, there is no response. And we know that the days are numbered for such companies. They're not going to last forever. Because in today's competitive world, the customer has several options. If there is not one, there are 10 other options that's available. You switch to something else. Today, companies are talking about 10 minutes delivery, 20 minutes delivery. And if a company who's promising delivery in 5 days is not able to deliver even in 5 days, do you think those companies will last forever? Never. So it is very, very important when you design your supply chain to keep the customer at the center of it.
Okay, so how are companies, creating or designing their supply chains or value chains with customers at the center? So the first thing, someone very wise once told me that never before has it been easier for a customer to order a product, and never before has it been more difficult to serve or fulfill the demand of that product. And that's the sign of times we are in. And in the last couple of years, of course, we've all heard of omni-channel that word's been thrown around. And typically when we are talking, and a lot of this discussion we'll all see will be centered around e-commerce companies, but then there are companies doing regular products like ours, which is not as sexy, let us say, as the e-com products or even Akhil's for that matter. So the fact is that all companies, whether they are e-com or not, eventually will have to make sure that their supply chains are designed in a way where the customer is able to order through whatever touch point he or she has. So either through phone or through a telecall or through the internet or go to a dealer physically. So you have web rooming, showrooming. So you've got to make sure that the customer sees or experiences your product at all these touch points. And effectively, this is how we are going about designing our supply chains. And while, of course, all of us are practitioners here, so I don't want to get into how one would want to position inventory, etc. But the other big thing that companies are, again, will have to do, will have to co-opt a lot of partners. So like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. And similarly, I think to get a product to a consumer, it probably takes much more than a village. So for example, in our case, of tires especially, when it comes to passenger car tires, what we do is, while we can sell it online, but none of us will be able to fit it at home, right? So you need to do the balancing, you need to do the alignment, and we cannot do it at home. So while we sell it online, but then we have co-opted our business partners where you are able to take an appointment and then go and do the fitting. So and then replenish stock of those tires that are being sold. So effectively, the consumer is at the center, and then you are co-opting all your partners, whether it's your suppliers, whether it's your business partners, whether it's your LSPs, all have to be aligned to ensure that the customer demand from whatever channel it comes, whether it's through the mobile or through the phone, you're able to meet the customer requirement. And again, and like we just heard, right, that there are companies which are delivering in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and there are companies which are promising 5 days and probably not even doing 5 days. And there again, all of us, I'm sure, have in some form or another implemented a control tower. I mean, and that's another much abused word these days. So can vary from inventory visibility to just simple track and trace. And I remember when we do a lot of exports to Europe, and I remember when that Ever Given incident happened, and we were wondering which side of that ship are our containers on, this side or the other. And that's when we realized that the importance of visibility of not just domestic goods, but also international goods. Because there again, reliability is very important when you're talking about exports to the Western world. Typically, you will notice the pecking order is the Americans and Europeans take the first tier, the Japanese the second, and the lot of cases Indians and Chinese get sort of bunched together. And if you're not reliable, then that just pulls you down one notch. So that's the other big one that companies are working on to ensure that they meet their promise, or at least do the repairing of inventory or do some risk pooling of inventory to ensure that if there is an incident in the supply chain, they're at least able to meet their promises. And of course, all these are not possible without any investments in technology. So while you're not allowed to use AI ML, the words AI ML, but at least I can. So of course, we are doing a lot of work on that front to ensure that we meet our promises that we make to our customers.
Thank you, Anand and Shailendra. Yes, I think we've been talking about 10 minutes, 15 minutes delivery a lot. How many of you really love it to have within 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes deliveries? How many of you really love it? You like to have it, right? All of us, right? And that's how, and honestly, I think 2-3 years before, no one even thought that this is possible. Or probably even we never expected or we never wanted it. Even today there's a question, do we really need it in 10 or 15 minutes or not? But guys, behind the scene, it's very easy to say that 10 minutes delivery, 15 minutes delivery, but what happens on the supply chain front, right? You have to be really innovative. The way we have to design our warehouse spaces to keep those 10, 15,000 SKUs, still figure out that you get order 5, 7 SKUs and you have to take out those SKUs, pack it, and do everything within few seconds to ensure that you are able to deliver it within the time that you're committing. So you have to keep innovating, keep generating new ideas, and that's why that's where my second question is about is to Vikas, Charish, and Prakash, is about how companies are leveraging this technology, this next generation value chain, to overcome or kind of outgrow the competition or the market. So Vikas, starting with you.
Vijay.
Sorry,
Okay.
Vijay, not Vikas. Vijay, sorry.
At Alkem, I would say, pandemic or pre-pandemic, okay, the scenario is completely changed, okay. So typically a supply chain road would talk about order management, planning, warehousing, transportation, okay, making sure the goods are available all across, okay. So I'm just deep diving into some real cases. We have almost close to, if I talk about India business, we have almost 5,000 distributors, which onward supply to almost 9 lakh chemists, okay? And domestic being main business which contribute over $1 billion worth of sales becomes quite tricky. So on an average, in a month, we get almost close to 1,25,000 orders, okay? And it's processed all across the different regions within India. Now, typical sales standards, we clearly know that we don't get unique sales, okay? Only on the last week of the month, we do almost our 60 to 70% of our sales, okay? And you always have this kind of, your entire manpower, everything is done that day. So there's no different scenario for Alkem as well, okay? So what we decided is that, are we adding any value, okay? Ultimately, the orders are coming and we are just entering it, okay? So of course, we leverage technology to make sure, understand what are the different order positioning which is happening from our stockist and trying to leverage in terms of using AI, ML as our base. And today, I can say that, of course, pandemic helped it, pushed it. So almost 1 lakh orders, we had almost close to 98 team members involved in just entering these orders. Today, the team size has gone down by there are only 7.5 FTEs, which is actually doing the order processing. and they are only checking the hygiene of the orders. It doesn't mean that the other staff are now, they don't have a job. They are now on the ground talking to the stockist, engaging with the stockist. Earlier, it was no engagement with the stockist or distributors, okay? Now we are engaging with the stockist, trying to know their stock points. Earlier, we always used to hear sales loss, okay, because supply chain did not deliver, okay? Now, when we say that, okay, distributor already has a stock, okay, he has 30 days stock, what kind of a sales loss are we talking about, okay? And that's where we are now getting to it. So technology definitely helps in terms of marrying this visibility or with the transportation management. Like an e-commerce company, we are where you get visibility of milestones. Of course, Alkem is now into a journey where the stockist, we have created our own marketplace called Alkem Marketplace, where the distributors, whenever they send an order, immediately within few seconds it gets reflected in the portal. They have options not only whether it is PDF, whether it is WhatsApp, use any media, you can just share the orders and it will be executed. The next thing, immediately what they get to know is when this order is getting picked, when it was packed and when it was dispatched. We are now working on the transportation visibility where they also get to know that, okay, when the order is actually going to reach. So these are some of the initiatives that we are taking at Alkem, and I truly believe that, yes, technology is shaping and helping supply chain professionals like us to actually lead the way. Thank you.
Charish, maybe,
Thank you, Vijay, for sharing the perspective from Alkem. So I'll try to share some example from food industry, how it works. Taking a lead from the thing which Himanshu has discussed about the quick comms. Few months back, there was no discussion about it, but today everybody is interested to get delivery in 10 minutes, 9 minutes, or maybe number reduced in coming days. How value chain help to drive this initiative? Let's divide the supply chain into three things. Coming to the front part. So these quick comms are changing the consumer behavior and making them and have an expectation of 10 minutes delivery. We, as a service provider to them, we have to ensure their dark stores are always filled with the quality, with the quantity, and with the limited, as per the shelf life, because fresh has a shelf life of few hours, unlike any other product. So we have to ensure their fill rates are high, and we have to replenish it so fast that they are always to the delivery of the consumer. When it comes to the middle point, at the operations level, this produce by its nature, when it comes out of the field, it starts deteriorating by nature because there is a moisture loss. We have to put in the required stocking systems, storage systems, that we are able to deliver this product as fresh any point of time with a commitment to take care for the fluctuation at the back end. Now, this is exactly where the value chain is playing the role. When we go to the back end, we are connecting directly with the farmers by cutting in 7 to 10 intermediators to ensure this part is having minimum number of touch, and at the same time this value chain is giving a better visibility to the farmers. Not even that, this value chain is giving them a better realization. So this is a part of the value chain. As an example, I am trying to express in the food industry where we are giving better realization to the initial person and to the consumer also, which is optimizing on the losses. And along with that, we are giving them a better visibility how to plan their produce. Thank you.
Thanks, Shari. I'll take a macro perspective on this. Today, if you look at it, how businesses are leveraging the value chain to sort of outgrow the market. And there are a couple of observations there. Broadly, fundamentally, you can expand your product portfolio, we can expand into new markets, or you're fundamentally looking at how do I increase revenue per customer, right? To achieve that, I think there are 3-4 things that are happening. Traditionally, if you look at, people used to do a related or an unrelated diversification, which was very time consuming. Today, with acquisitions, it's much faster. And if you look at it, it's acquisition not for a line of business. For example, let's say Reliance acquiring NetMeds or a Tata acquiring 1mg may look like they're getting into a pharmacy line of business, but actually it's acquisition of the last mile value chain capability for them to expand and outgrow in the market, right? The other trend that we are seeing is, I think, both the forward and the backward integration is still in play. to kind of build that competency. I think essentially these things are being done where your value chain becomes your core competency or a competitive advantage to serve multiple customer segments. So let's say, Adani acquiring Wholesome Business is a classic example of a backward integration sort of serving into their infrastructure business. The third trend, mostly in markets like US and Europe, we are observing is where most organizations want to move to an outsourced fulfillment model as well as an end-to-end value chain. And there is a clear trend where a lot of outsourced fulfillment services with technology are coming into place. And I think lastly, but not the least, I think most of the organizations also realize where it is group company and multiple businesses being run independently are sort of embracing, can we create a centralized, let's say a center of excellence sort of a model for procurement for different functions, being like a shared services unit across multiple businesses. Is there some sort of capacity sharing that can help, drive the value chain to be a lot more competitive to outgrow the market? Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash. Absolutely. I think, see, one thing with this kind of hustle or the complexity which is increasing and the expectation that we have from the value chain, what is really needed is more seamless transfer of information, more seamless integration of your backward and front end. So those things are getting more and more important. And also business needs, and these needs are going to change every time, right? Today we are talking 15 minutes delivery, tomorrow there will be something else is going to come up, right? Maybe in the area of e-commerce or manufacturing or distribution. Now with this change, continuous changes which is going to happen, you need to keep innovating. But most of the time what we have seen is that when we do some innovation, when we bring some innovative model, so initially those increases the cost of supply chain or the value chain to the extent that it may not be profitable anymore. So my next question is to Akhil and to Anand, is about what is important, just to keep making profit from the existing business models, or do we still focus on the innovation which may not be profitable right away?
That's a brilliant question. I would ask everyone to make profit today itself so that you can fuel the new business models, because of course the best thing is you need to have money to fund it. Now, there could be various source of financing. It could be a venture route. It could be your own basket. So from my example, when I was with ITC, which in 2000, early 2000 was called as Indian Tobacco Company, right? Now, how many of us realize what brands ITC has, right? It's almost everything else. And that's where they had a lot of money, which was from a profitable business, but they wanted to move off because they also wanted to diversify. And that's where the short answer is we need both, right? But let me deep dive into innovation and change, because that's very important in terms of business models. So if you are looking at a clock, which I am looking in front, and that's why I'll take only 1 minute onto this answer, is, the clock has two arms. One arm is called change, the second arm is called innovation. Both need to run fast because the clock is moving forward. Otherwise, the big companies will not be able to disrupt the businesses. There will be something called as passive inertia or active inertia to change. But that is just a whitewash saying, oh, I need to replicate something, I need to move faster, right? However, there are some companies, for example, Apple, they have just innovated. I mean, they don't need marketing and sales. Yes, they do marketing and sales, but iPhone just launched its new iPhone 14. I mean, which of us does not know that as of now? So those things, to my understanding, are both hand in hand, but you need to be profitable, and hence change needs to have three factors into it. One being solve a real problem, right, which is a consumer-centric problem. Second is solve that problem which is at scale and is scalable. Third is solve it profitably, if not today, for future. So that's from my side.
Thank you.
So, see, the conventional answer would be why spend money on the unknown, and provided you have the money. Not every company will be able to spend $1 million or a few $100 million or even $1 billion on a experiment or even a moonshot for that matter. So conventional wisdom would say that why kill your cash cow But like Himanshu said, right, even change is not the only constant anymore. So you can't afford to stand at the sidelines and figure out how is my business, the business models of my industry changing, and then I will become a fast follower. That's not going to work. So my personal view is, the way to approach it is think big, act small, and fail fast. So you may have a big vision or even a moonshot of an idea, but then, like I was saying, not everyone has the cash to invest or burn, or because the point of a moonshot is that the likelihood of failure is higher than the likelihood of success, right? But the rewards are higher. So think of your full vision, or think of a big business model change that you want to do to disrupt your business. But act in small increments so that you can you figure out what works. You fail at a small scale, you fail fast, you go back to the drawing board, and then you again redesign. So you are in a constant, very short PDCA sort of a cycle. I mean, I don't know how many of us have seen the first Kindle that Amazon had made. It looked more like a Palm Pilot, right? So and I don't know how many of the audience are old enough to have seen the Palm Pilot. So at least I am. So it looked like a Palm Pilot, and what we see today is absolutely different. So if a company and of course I'm not sure if they were profitable then, but then again they also did this MVP thing, and probably it failed. But Amazon maybe is not the best example given the fact of the cash and it has, and the scale it has. But the philosophy or the principle still remains the same, that think of your entire big, hairy, audacious vision, but do it in smaller increments. You don't have to scream from rooftops about what you're doing, but learn from your failures, correct them fast, and then keep on incrementalizing it.
Thank you. I think when we talk about all these changes in supply chain, or building anything new, or even running the current supply chain, if you have to be more and more efficient, you need people, and you need talent who can drive such kind of supply chain. Every company wants to have the best-in-class supply chain, right? But to drive those best-in-class supply chain, you need best-in-class talents. So we do understand, we keep hearing about artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science. These are must qualities that supply chain professional must have. At the same time, I believe fundamental also is very important. You need to know fundamentals of supply chain. You need to know planning very well, that what are the different factors which drives the planning, what different factors which can help you in terms of improving your manufacturing efficiencies. So the question basically is to Akhil and to Shailendra is on what kind of credentials or skill set you see that our future leaders in supply chain must have?
That's a pretty deep question, because what I see in future is, I can't see the future today. It's changing very, very fast, to your previous question. But first, a round of claps to every one of you here, because you are the agents of change. So that's very, very important in terms of bringing, the overall, what we need to bring. So first thing is people, right? The biggest change which we need to bring, because supply chain is one of the newest functions within a typical business, right? Sales, marketing traditionally always used to exist. Supply chain emerged in early 20s, wherein we said, okay, you need someone who can push trucks, who can do planning and things like those, right? That's where some people started joining the bandwagon. Today, 43 out of 100 companies have core competencies in supply chain. And some of the biggest companies are just backed on supply chains. So first thing which I think is about the people, which needs to be upskilled. And that's the question in terms of, if you draw a matrix between challenge on the y-axis and the skills on x-axis, if you have less skill, high challenge, that leads to anxiety, right? If you have high skills, low challenge, that leads to boredom. I'm sure none of you guys here were bored in last 2 years, right? So there were a lot of challenges thrown to us as supply chain leaders. And that's something which brings to the next point of becoming a sponge. I take that analogy, if you can remember back home, is a sponge is which can absorb water, and if squeezed, releases water, which means it's not about skilling yourself. It's about learning, relearning, learning. So many things have changed in last 3 years for us as supply chain. So many challenges have come to us, which means having an upskill thing would really need to be done faster at much faster pace. And maybe we need to forget that in 2 years. Because when I was growing up, I knew Domino's 30 minutes nahi to free. I ensured 31st minute mein hi aayega wo mere ko free milega. Now Zepto is 10 minutes. Now I don't know whether there's something going to be free in that, but that's how the concept is going. So the concept of instant gratification and understanding the consumer centricity is what supply chain leaders need to learn. I'll give an example. How many of you have kids at home which are teenagers? Raise your hands, please. I have one. Okay. How many of you who know people who are kids or people who are 13, 14, 15 years of age? Cool. So question to all of you. I'll ask some words and tell me what you interpret and what that person will interpret. Sick, right? Then slaps, right? Then drip. For me, I was in hospital day before yesterday. I was like, sick and drip means someone needs to go to hospital. My son says, Dad, this is drip. This is so sick. I mean, that's the consumer of tomorrow. So my challenge today is, I'm in anxiety. I need to learn or relearn what sick means in their parlance. I really need to he said, Dad, I'm vibing. I'm like, what does vibing mean, man? He's like, means chill out. Like, seedhe bolna, chill out. Right? So that's something, to your point, is what we as supply chain leaders need to be connected to consumers, which I think is the last nugget missing for us. If we are able to do it, the channel is already there and the business models are being done. But we need to understand whether it's still a she economy, whether the consumer and customers are changing much faster than our anticipation. Thank you.
So I will add a different perspective. I mean, we've been focusing a lot on e-commerce and this 10 minutes and 30 minutes delivery. I mean, in pharma, pandemic was a very big wake-up call to all of us, and particularly us operating in essential commodities like foods, pharma, where despite the lockdown, we had to ensure consistent supplies of medicines, particularly essential medicines, medicines required to treat COVID-19 patients. And how do you do that when everything is shut? There are no transporters, there are no courier companies, and I mean, that was a real test for all of us as true supply chain professionals. And that really tested our abilities, our capabilities, or what do we need to have as supply chain professionals. And some of the things that I can quote is proactive thinking, the mindset. I mean, we've been talking about the opening question of this panel was, how do we design supply chain with customer at the focus, in the center? And that will keep coming back again and again, because when we are in supply chain, we are sitting right in the middle between the corporate and the customer. And the corporate has its own demands from us in terms of reducing cost, giving more and more to the corporate in terms of profit, whereas customer wants product at the lowest cost. And how do you do that? Sitting in the middle, balance the two, right? So we need to have, as supply chain professionals, understanding of finance. We need to understand how does this entire finance operate between the corporate and the customer. The second is the mindset. Do we have the right mindset? Do we have the mindset of proactive thinking? You know, in Abbott, for example, one of the key competencies that we need to have is anticipate. What is our ability to anticipate? I mean, in the previous panel, there was one astrologer who could read palm. We're not astrologers. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Nobody had forecasted that there was going to be Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, it was there. The dispute was going on for years, but it suddenly happened. COVID happened. It was a big blow. It took us, all of us, by surprise. So were we prepared, and how do we prepare ourselves for such contingencies? And that's where one is being proactive, but despite being proactive, we still have unforeseen challenges. How do we handle them? So do we have a mindset of problem solving? How do we develop that? Project management skills. We in supply chain, we have so many projects going all the time. The cost-saving projects, there are new warehousing projects, new distribution centers, and the works. Those in manufacturing will have a number of projects. So these are some of the capabilities, skills that we need to develop over a period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. So for the next question, I want to quote one line of our ex-Niti Aayog CEO, Mr. Amitabh Kant. And in his many speeches, he said one thing, that when developed countries innovate something, like US, Europe and all, they innovate for few million people or few thousand people, right? But what is needed in India is something which can help billion of people. That is what the innovation are. Those are the changes that we need, in India. Whether we talk about its manufacturing setup, we talk about helping small, businesses, we talk about helping the SMEs, the manufacturer. So my question to Charish, Anand, and to Vijay is: how large population is getting benefited with this next generation value chain? So Charish.
Again, taking an example from food industry, if you'll see, like food industry, any legacy food, am I audible? Hello? Yeah, any legacy system of, any legacy supply chain, it's a supply-driven supply chain, food industry, which is more about gut feeling and intuition. Like, if price of any crop is on higher side today, farmer by default will incline towards it to cultivate it more, because they are going with an expectation that next year the prices will be on the higher side. That is a speculation. So what happens if you look at the food industry, which is contributing nearly 20% in India GDP, 30% of the food is getting waste every year, which is like more than the consumption of any small country. Take an example of Brazil. So this is the quantity we are wasting because of the shortfall we have in terms of the speculation in this industry. So what we are doing, we are creating a platform with the help of the technology, which is going to study the demand patterns of these products. And in turns, with the help of machine learning, we are trying to speculate it better, which in turn we are taking up with these farmers and telling them what to grow, what to cultivate, and where the future is going to be inclined towards. In turn, how it is helping them, they are more profitable, wastage is less, and at the same time, this produce is reaching to the consumer and consumer is getting benefited. So my answer to this question is to reach higher part of the population. The technology is a solution which we have to embed in every, the supply chain problem, which in turn will connect the consumer and the producer together for the better visibility and the inclinings towards usage.
Anand. Thank you, Charish.
Yeah. So I think the obvious answer is okay. It's benefiting the consumer and prices will come down. It's a lot of convenience. So I think that's a no-brainer, right? So that's how these new value chains are impacting everyone, consumers, and we are all consumers as well. The other thing is also the other positive impact is probably also the fact that it is generating employment for people who are probably in the unskilled bracket. So it's also contributing to the economy, and it has its own trickle down effects on let's say crime, etc. But the other point I have is probably more philosophical in nature. So see, personally, apart from what I do professionally, I am a great believer of the fact that we have to do something for the planet before it's too late. So that's a cause which is personally dear to my heart, and so therefore there are two benefits, one good, one bad, out of these value chains. The first is probably electrification. And what these new age or these new value chains are doing is, given the fact that electrification, it's a chicken and egg situation. So you don't have the charging infrastructure. Is that a problem, or the fact that there are no vehicles, is that the problem? So we have that chicken and egg situation. But at least on the last mile, which is where a bulk of this activity is happening right now, in terms of the newer value chains that we're talking about, I think that's where the electrification is starting, and my fond hope is that with that, at least it will create the infrastructure for the country to be ready when the larger powertrains are in place. So I don't know if any of my partners are here, but I am after the life of so many of them on telling at least on last mile what are we doing about electrification. So that's probably one good thing that's going to come out of this. It will probably put us into a virtuous cycle, or at least get us ready when the larger powertrains are ready for long haul, etc. of electrification. The other, which is a not so great one, is we've been talking about this 10-minute delivery. Personally, I have been a supply planner all my life, and if you love 10-minute delivery, it just tells me you're a bad planner. So that's my personal opinion. You can hold me to it. It's good for us. We sell more tires, but that's besides the point. I just noticed, a couple of days back, so guys from the two delivery boys from the same dark store coming out of the lift, one going to my apartment, the other going to my neighbor's apartment. So now imagine, so again, like I said, it's philosophical in nature, it's benefiting us as consumers, but imagine the impact it has on the environment. I'm sure they didn't come pillion riding, so they both had their bikes. As a company, we are happy, we are selling more tires, like I said, but what are we doing to the environment? So that's the flip side of this. So while it's surely benefiting us as customers, generating employment, contributing to the economy, making us number 5, number 4, number 3 someday. But think of that as well, because eventually this is the only home we have, right?
Yeah, from a supply chain perspective, I can say yes, technology helps, okay? But what is also more required by an individual or a supply chain leader is some kind of self-confidence, challenging the status quo, and also making some difficult decisions as well, okay? I can give a classical example. Alkem is a pharma company manufacturing antibiotics. So we are #1 antibiotics company. You pick up any products, I'm sure, in the hospitals or in the chemist, I would say we will rule there, okay? Came pandemic, okay? What was selling? I'm sure Dolo was selling, vitamin C, zinc. Everybody was focusing on immunity, okay? And now you get a demand plan from the sales and marketing. We were not very, segment-wise, we are very, I would say the top 10 in the chronic division, that is the diabetic, to do with the cholesterol, heart and other things. But yeah, antibiotics was one. Now what do? I get this demand and say that now produce it. Now I'm talking to this guy, the business head, the business director, and you have to tell him that vitamins are selling. Can we look at that particular portfolio, what's happening, okay? And the first wave and the second wave, we all know how things were. Most of us worked from home, okay? But our factories were functional, our warehouses were functional, of course, thanks to government's some notification. Initially, we had some hiccups. But how did we make that happen, okay? And we clearly changed the scenario just by asking few questions saying that, can we sell vitamins, okay? So we have some of the brands like A to Z, Gemkels and all of the world. The brand which was doing pre-pandemic 5 to 7 crores did almost in a month 30 to 35 crores. Because there were issues as well, and hence it's not about technology, we'll talk about internal things, but are you also looking at the external world? Okay, what's happening to, let's say, I give an example of a competitor. Anybody is having Zincovit? Zincovit you must have heard of, Zincovit brand, okay? So Zincovit had a problem in their plant, okay? Now typically what used to happen is that in Sikkim, if something goes wrong, or even if one employee is tested COVID positive, the entire plant is sanitized and yeah, all this kind of things happened. Your import shipments are not coming. And if you actually, as a supply chain professional, if you actually look at that side, what is happening on the competitor's side, and I'm sure you would definitely add good value. The same product, the same vitamins which had 5 to 7 crores of value in a month, we did 30 crores in a month as well. And that sold as a hotcake because we had orders and we were not able to supply. We had to actually make sure. So this is where I would say from a supply chain perspective, how you can add value. Technology will give you all the answers, but one needs to look at more as an entrepreneur, okay? The supply chain guy should behave like an entrepreneur, ask some good questions, not just take inputs and then just process it, but I think this is how you can add value. Similarly, from an environmental perspective, our distributors, okay, they were also shut. They would only open once or twice in a week, okay? A lot of part load shipments we could consolidate and had a full truckload. So our share of part load, which was 45% of our total shipments, went down by to 22%. Okay, and that can definitely happen with proper planning and understanding, but challenging the status quo is very, very important. Act like an entrepreneur is what would be my message. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So Sanjay, do we have time for another question or?
We're done, 3:30.
We're done?
Exactly. We'll take one question from the delegates.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So
one.
maybe.
Did you
Yes.
ask earlier? No, right? Please, go ahead. Only one question, guys.
Thank you to be the lucky one, Sanjay. We definitely didn't recognize each other. So with Mr. Bobhate, the journey that we started at CR Planning, I was the logistics service provider who was given the opportunity to start. Bobhate will connect again. So we missed recognizing each other. And the student that Mr. Bobhate that you encouraged to be a part of that journey grew up and nurtured under Mr. Anand Maithani and have been given opportunities of growing all these years. And it's really fortunate that, the two of you are here today. So just adding on to what Mr. Anand said, I would like to ask you, Mr. Shailendra, is social cost concept being discussed in the next value chain, or will it be too late by the time we realize that, it should have been a part of the next generation value chain, also the social cost aspect?
There is not much discussion, but I can tell you there is increasing awareness that's happening all around, particularly in multinational companies, because I worked in about US multinational companies, and there was a lot of importance given to social cost as well. So we had already started a few projects, for example, on the power side, because power is one of the major costs in any industry after salaries and wages. The second highest cost in our P&L statement is power and fuel. So the focus was on how do we move away from conventional power and fuel and move more towards the renewable energy and get the carbon footprint down, get more the carbon points. So there is increasing awareness that's happening, though the pace is slow, because today if you look at these projects are not economically or financially justifiable. I mean, you can't, if the finance guys ask you what is the ROI, I can't give you payback in 4 years, because I remember the first solar project we have wanted to implement, the payback was coming to 7 or 8 years. The finance guy said, you're out of mind. I'm looking at projects which give 4 years or less payback. I said, you're not talking about payback. Here you're talking about much bigger corporate objective that we have to achieve. So forget about your 4 years payback, benchmark. So that's how things are changing. And I'm sure it'll gain pace, because what kind of environmental issues everyone is seeing around, I think the pace is going to increase in the future.
Thank you. I think the entire panel, it was a pretty good discussion. I know that we can keep discussing it.
Yeah.
But I think we'll have to close here. I just want to end with one line that the supply chain in future is not just going to be an enabling function. Rather, any cutting edge supply chain is only going to build the businesses. So we are going to be a differentiator. So thank you, panel. Yeah.
Absolutely. Great job. Absolutely. Sharu? Let's stay there. We need to felicitate each of you. Anyone getting 2 now, Charu? Anybody getting 2?
I thought Charu was like going forward progressively. 2 people with 1 and then 3 on going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to give, you can take Akhil's and give it to somebody. Yeah, you can take Akhil's.